Bueckers stole the show in Unrivaled.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball, your number one sports podcast network, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm here with Golden State Valkyries analyst Sophia Jones. My name is Kalia Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So in terms of what we're going to chat about today, there's a couple Big Ten games that were exciting last night. AP polls have come out for this week, and there's been some significant changes. But first of all, Unrivaled came off to a hot start. I was stuck to my couch and my television all day yesterday because the games were really fun. Starting off first, Mist and Hive played against each other. The Mist ended up winning 72-56, and Allisha Gray really set the tone for what the rest of the day was going to look like for Unrivaled. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals to anchor their win. We have to mention Veronica Burton from the Valkyries had 14 points and 8 rebounds. And then, of course, Brianna Stewart, 12 points. And Arike Agumbawale had 12 points as well. They just had a really strong attack. But Allisha Gray coming back and doing Allisha Gray things in Unrivaled. I think the number one video that stands out to me about her from last season is when they corrected her on how tall she was. She was like, I'm 6 feet, don't play with me, and just walked off. And it's just that confidence and stance that has carried over into season 2.
100%. I mean, she had a really successful season with the Atlanta Dream. Then even in the time, this gap between Unrivaled and WNBA, she won that gold medal in the FIBA AmeriCup 3x3-on-3 contest with Veronica Burton on her same team as well. So she is just really riding a high, and Miss BC was one of my early championship favorites, and I think they proved exactly why I was correct in this game. They looked really comfortable. Just especially, I mentioned Allisha Gray and Veronica Burton. They already had a head start over some of these other teams being teammates themselves. And let's not forget that Brianna Stewart is on that team as well. They just have so many scores. And specifically for Stewie, her team didn't perform, I think, as to expectations last season. So I think that she definitely is having a chip on her shoulder moving forward for this, because she's a co-founder in this league, so you got to represent your name. And just aside from the fact that she's Brianna Stewart herself, the mid-range assassin, president of the MIDI committee, everything, that is exactly what you want. And then throw in Arike Agumbawale. Mist look really, really solid that game. And I'm looking at some of the front court play that they also got with Alana Smith and Lee Yaru. That's a very balanced and tall team as well, and I think that's what was one of the difference makers against Hive.
Yeah, they're big. There's no jokes about that. The second game of the day was Laces and Vinyl. Laces won 58-42. In that game, Brittany Sykes Slim had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and a steal. Jackie Young, 15 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and a block. On the other side for Vinyl, Erica Wheeler led with 12 points. But another pretty significant win for the Laces, led by that little duo of Brittany Sykes and Jackie Young, who I really like seeing them play alongside each other.
That's a great tandem in the backcourt, or just ball handlers. In 3-on-3, everyone is ball handlers. But on the other side of the ball, offensively, not only do you need to have the ability to score one-on-one, on the other side, you guarding on an island. So you need to keep the ball in front of you. And I think those two do a great job of just facilitating that and make it a really difficult backcourt to get through. Even looking on the other side, again, against the Vinyl team, they limited some of their heavy hitters pretty well. Erica Wheeler still had those 12 points, but Ryan Howard specifically, she finished with 10, 3 of 15. So I think still getting used to this fast pace of Unrivaled a little bit maybe, but she's someone that when she gets going, it can be unconscious. And for the Laces to cut her off and contain her in that game was probably the game plan.
For the third game of the night that literally had my mouth on the ground the entire time because Chelsea Gray is absolutely insane. Rose played the Lunar Owls and won 80-60. Rose was actually leading the Lunar Owls by 25 points at the half, largely because Chelsea Gray is just absolutely insane. That was literally the notes that I had for today. She is insane. She had 35 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. Mind you, she could have had a couple of more assists. Some people just weren't necessarily finishing. And you can tell when somebody is not finishing or doing what she envisions for them. She's like, all right, everybody just get out the way. I'm going to handle this myself. She can score on every level. She was having behind the back passes. You just have to be prepared and always be looking at her, just looking for the ball, because you never really know if it's coming to you or not. But if you're not prepared for that moment, she's going to look at you and be like, come on, like, get with the program. This is what it is. She is just nuts. Like, and honestly, every time I watch her play, I am just more and more fascinated the fact that she does some of the things that she does.
Exactly. I mean, the Rose, they saw their first ever Unrivaled championship banner raised before the game. So that 100% has to account for a little bit of extra motivation. But Chelsea Gray said after the game, she was like, that banner up there, championships are the standard. And Rose really got out to a hot start and establishing that. That's how they're going to continue and move forward. But like you said, Chelsea Gray was absolutely incredible, put on a masterclass. And even I'm going to throw in those 3 steals that she had there. I think the scouting, I don't know why when people drive against Chelsea Gray, they think that they can bring the ball low, because she just manages to get her hand in the cookie jar every single time, and then it's going the other way. And then with Rose, they have some great athletes to run the floor, especially like Azurá Stevens and Shakira Austin that are just rim running. She's throwing it up, and it's an easy bucket. So Rose, they were just coasting, but they got that win still without Kalia Copper, which I think was huge. She did not play. And then on the other side, for the Lunar Owls, Nafisa Collier, of course, will be out this entire season with those ankle surgeries. And then Skylar Diggins did not play as well. So a couple injuries that might have skewed this, because we all know how much, at least for Skylar Diggins, who will hopefully return this season for Unrivaled, how much she can make a difference. But that Lunar Owls have a little bit, they still got that fire and competitive spirit in them that I think they won't roll over.
And of course, have to mention the official debut of Paige Bueckers. The Breeze played the Phantom and won 69-62. Paige had 24 points. And we've talked about this before. This kind of one-on-one style, essentially, which she also kind of described as being multiple versions of one-on-one in certain ways. She is just able to do it all. And I think what I love about Paige most is that she has really brought back the mid-range game. Obviously, there are some other players across Unrivaled that also has that in their bag, especially when you think of a Stewie. But Paige being able to do this as a guard has never just settled for being strictly a three-point shooter or just getting to the rim. She really relies on that mid-range game. She is going to create space in any way, shape, or form, and she's going to get that shot off, and she's either going to get fouled and go to the rim. She might just get her own rebound and go ahead and attack again. But I really, really enjoyed seeing her debut, and of course, leading the Breeze to this win. The young intern group showing exactly what they are capable of doing. This was my team that I chose at the beginning of the season alongside my queen, Rakia Jackson, who added 16 points.
Breeze looked really solid, saying that this was their first game as an established club together. I think one of the biggest assets for them is going to be that youthfulness, because all of them can run the floor. all of them can space. And just across the board, when both teams just look gassed towards the end of the game, Breeze looked like they had a little bit of extra juice. And I think that's what helped to carry them just over the hump and get the win. But like you said, Paige Bueckers, she was outstanding. I think Dom Malonga, she finished with 15 points, 14 rebounds, so a double-double there. She's only going to continue to get better. And Rakia Jackson had that game-winning shot, or the game-winning free throws. So you have so many just different options on that team. But against Phantom, who also had Kelsey Plum's debut over there, and they actually did a solid job defending Kelsey Plum. She, for as much of a bucket getter as she is, she had 12 points, 5 of 17, so a little inefficient, but Phantom was actually led by Tiffany Hayes, another Valkyrie who got back from Turkey not too long ago. So she's fresh and she looked in really good game shape.
Just quick summary of the top performers of the day. Chelsea Gray led the way, 35 points. Allisha Gray, 21 points. Paige Bueckers, 24 points. Marina Mabrey had 21 points. Coming up after this, we're going to get into this week's AP poll. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This week's AP poll looks pretty similar to what we've seen for the top 4 teams, at least. That has been cemented. UConn at number 1, Texas still sitting at number 2. Both of those teams are undefeated. South Carolina 3rd, 15-1 record. UCLA at 4th, 14-1 record. But who we saw drop from that 5th spot after losing 2 SEC-ranked opponent games is LSU, who has now dropped 7 points all the way down to number 12. And Oklahoma has actually taken their spot, and Kentucky and Vanderbilt are right under them at 6 and 7. We're not bringing that into 2026. And has kind of cemented that anyone in the SEC can win games, and anyone is beatable. LSU dropping significantly after these 2 back-to-back losses, and those teams taking their spots, moving up 5 points, essentially 5 places, is pretty significant in terms of the SEC is continuing to climb within the AP polls alongside the Big Ten.
Definitely. You essentially took an SEC team that fell out of that top 5, and then you substituted it with 3 more with Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. because you had a little bit of drops in the Big Ten between Maryland and Michigan. So SEC has just proved themselves to be so competitive. You even talk about how no team has really proven themselves to be unbeatable. And I think at the top of the SEC right now, you're looking at Texas, but Ole Miss only lost to them by 3 points. So they dropped 3 spots down the poll. I don't even know if they should have dropped that much, because Texas has really cemented themselves as a very strong number 2 contender in the NCAA. But the SEC just continues to prove that there can, like you said, anyone can win on any given night, which is going to result in a lot of these shifts. But I'm not surprised seeing those 3 new entrances into the top 10. I mentioned Maryland and Michigan dropped. That's not surprising after they suffered some losses as well. And then you also see TCU was another team that had a pretty significant shift. They dropped 5 spots after suffering their first loss of the season. That's another team that consistently was in that top 10. So we'll see if throughout Big 12 play, they'll still have more opportunities to gain a little bit of forward momentum. Michigan State rose 9 spots, so they've been performing really, really well. And I'll also throw in Baylor. They rose 6 spots after beating Iowa State, they fell down 1. But I think with the return of Talia Scott, who got a little banged up in their game against Texas in December, and she hit that game-winning shot to beat Iowa State, having her fully healthy is essentially what is going to help Baylor continue to make their way up the AP poll, because I think they still have a lot of potential. And like I said, in the Big 12, there's room to have some really big wins.
A couple of other teams that have dropped out of the poll: North Carolina, no longer within the top 25. Sorry, they dropped to 22 after losing to Stanford. And then Notre Dame also struggling as well after losing 2 conference opponents, but they were against unranked opponents. They lost to Duke and Georgia Tech as of late. We talked a lot about Hannah Hidalgo kind of being their saving grace. However, she can't do it alone.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about Notre Dame is they have the capability to still return to the AP poll and make a significant stir because of what Hannah Hidalgo can do when she's playing really, really well. I think in these past couple games that Notre Dame has lost, she's almost over trying a little bit to be that hero, and it's resulting in a little bit of inefficiency, which when that just hurts the entire team. So I think you try to balance it out a little bit more, but still Hannah Hidalgo needs to take the majority of the shots of the team. But Notre Dame, they're definitely not going to go away. I think you look at their loss to Duke specifically, and now you're seeing Duke in that category of other teams receiving votes. So Duke is starting to earn a little bit of respect themselves. And the ACC, you have Louisville as their highest ranked representative. So still some opportunities for Notre Dame to get a couple signature wins and make the rankings again.
Other teams receiving votes still: Illinois. Notre Dame is still receiving votes. Stanford, especially after their North Carolina win. NC State trying to climb their way back in. Alabama, West Virginia, Georgia, Duke getting some love again, as well as Oklahoma State. We will see what this next week of games brings. There's been a lot of upsets that definitely shook up the poll for this week. But coming up after this, we're going to get into some recaps of what we saw from the Big Ten games yesterday.
During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets. Fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few minutes. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action.
Alrighty, Big Ten play yesterday. Iowa, who's currently ranked at 14th, went up against Northwestern, beating them 67-58. Iowa jumped out early, scored 13 points in the first quarter, built a good amount of momentum. Northwestern stayed close, but trailed at the end of each quarter. And then a 15-6 Iowa run early in the fourth quarter kind of helped the Hawkeyes pull away from the Cats, which was in Evanston. And they battled throughout, but it kind of came down to the final minutes where Iowa was just really able to close out from the free throw line.
Yeah, and Iowa, they've done a solid job doing that so far in the Big Ten. They are one of two undefeated teams actually right now, along with UCLA. So climbing the rankings in that conference. But looking at Ava Hayden, she has been putting together a stretch of really efficient games. Yesterday, she had 23 points, 9 of 11 shooting, also 5 of 6 from the free throw line. So really providing that interior presence for Iowa. Also have to mention with Hannah Stuelke, who those two together just work at a really good tandem. When one of them wants to kind of be inside and take more of that back to the basket work, the other is okay stepping out, operating maybe a little bit more on the perimeter or on the elbows. And that tandem together just really opens up stuff for both. Chit-Chat Wright continues to be a huge major piece for Iowa as well. She finished with 12 points and 7 assists. Those 7 assists were really key in helping to get Iowa this win. She does a great job facilitating their offense and just getting things moving. Not everything needs to be in the half court, but she is so speedy. She allows them to play at a faster pace, which I think particularly for a rim runner like a Hannah Stuelke, she really benefits from.
I think this Iowa team has really come alive since the loss to Iowa State. I feel like they figured some pieces out, in particular with Ava Hayden, who fouled out of that game. It was just getting in a lot of foul trouble against Audie Crooks. But seeing how she has bounced back and kind of worked on the little things, I think Iowa overall has played a little bit more disciplined defense. But we were really excited to see that matchup between her and Audie Crooks. And it's nice to see Ava Hayden string some games together now where she's putting up like 20-point performances within each of them, essentially. She has definitely been one of the driving factors for the Hawkeyes. And you mentioned it as well, Chit-Chat Wright. I really enjoy what I see from her game too, because she's impacting both ends of the floor. We've seen her be able to really get this offense going. She has great bigs to feed, who are also wonderful rim runners, as you said, but she had 3 steals in this game. She's had a significant impact defensively. She's another tenacious defender that we have talked about throughout the Big Ten, and that is what allows this team to get out and run. So overall, really strong win for Iowa. They are continuing to look on the up and up. For Northwestern, Grace Sullivan did lead the way with 28 points. She had 7 rebounds and 4 assists. Strong overall performance for her. But in the other game that we saw from yesterday was Michigan and Minnesota. Another pretty solid one. Number 9, Michigan beat Minnesota 70-60. Michigan now improves to 12-2 overall and is 3-1 in Big Ten play. Michigan kind of had to dig themselves out of a hole in this one, rallied back to stay competitive with Minnesota, but then eventually, especially in the second half, was able to get on. In the second quarter, was able to get on a little run and was able to finish it off in the second half.
Yeah, and I think this was a good bounce back win for Michigan. Also, they lost to Washington last game by 12 points in a game that they just really couldn't get much offensive flow generated. They were at Oregon, at Washington. This game was back at home. So I think that also was something that helped this condensed schedule for them. And it felt like one of those, your team just needed the win in that moment. And that's what it felt like Michigan accomplished. They had only 14 turnovers in that game as well. So just taking care of the ball was a major factor. But Olivia Olson finished with 21 points. It's that sophomore trio again, Olivia Olson, Mila Holloway, and Silas Swords that really helped to lead Michigan throughout this game. And like I said, I think it was just positive for Michigan to get this bounce back win. They're, like you mentioned, 3-1 in Big Ten play. They were a really heavy hitter that we talked highly about. After they played UConn, they lost a very, very close game against them. So seeing that they're back on track is positive, especially when you're looking at that young core that they have with the outstanding sophomores. That's only going to develop and continue to grow over time.
Michigan's defense looked pretty strong in that game as well. They forced 17 turnovers from Minnesota, leading to 19 points for them. And that was kind of the part that really dug the hole for Minnesota as well. The more Michigan started to get into the game, and after they had kind of clawed themselves out of that deficit, Minnesota was just kind of giving up the ball to them. Michigan was able to capitalize on that, especially as you mentioned with that sophomore trio that they had. We did speak very highly of them in their game against UConn, especially Silas Swords, who just genuinely looked like she could not miss in that game. Michigan's still a young group in general, so they've had a little bit of their ebbs and flows throughout the season, but they've stayed very consistent nonetheless. So it's been exciting to see them kind of continue to cement that spot within the top 10 still.
Yeah, and another thing that I really noticed from their game and pretty much all their games is despite if they're connecting from shooting, they have great motor and they'll put those shots up. And one of the ways that I saw that reflected last game was they shot 26 free throws. So they were aggressive getting downhill. They were forcing the issue and getting to the line. That was another key difference maker because they were 18 of 26 as opposed to Minnesota, who was 10 of 10.
Absolutely. A couple of fun ones in the Big Ten. We'll continue to keep you updated on that, but that will do it for us on Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you guys again tomorrow. Stay with us.